Hi, I'm Rob Russell. This is Justin Callanan, my business partner. We are PIERMARQ, and this is our gallery space in Surrey Hills, and we're thrilled to have Jordy's family portraits just hung on the wall in anticipation of the opening this coming Thursday, the 4th of June. And it's a thrill to have Jordy here with us all the way from France. Bit of a misadventure on the way in.
Massive misadventure, yep. It was 40 hours in transit, which is not ideal. Lost suitcase. So, yeah, a shower-free couple of days.
And home is where?
Home is about 45 minutes east of Toulouse, in a place called Gaillac, which is, yeah, it's off the beaten track down the south of France. And it's quiet, drama-free. It's all right. Good place.
But you settled originally when you, Rach, and the boys moved over in Albi.
Yeah, we were closer to Albi, which is much more of a well-known city. I guess it's like a bit small. It's probably a bit smaller than Newcastle kind of feel. That was beautiful, lovely. And we were looking for more of a rural place, but then found an old school about half an hour out of Albi. And we've been slowly fixing it up with a view to doing more artistic things there. So we'll get there eventually. But at the moment, it's been put on hold.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, this show's come about almost in a planned yet haphazard way. I mean, we tied it in with the fact that we knew that, well, we must be in communication with you daily. I would have said broadly. So we always know what's being made in the studio. We always know what's coming. But
Sure.
we thought that we would present this to bring it forward because your sister is down in Melbourne, had a kid.
Yes, yeah. We tied it a bit of, yeah, new works for Sydney and some family events, and it makes, yeah, it's a good reason to come down and hang out with you guys, go see my sisters and my father, and make a new body of work. It was lovely. It was a really organic way to make the work, to be honest. It was just sort of, here's what I'm thinking, and then you guys let me know what you're thinking, and yeah, it's a lovely, organic, sort of stress-free way to pull things together. It works well for me, actually, just the sort of relaxed nature. Yeah.
Whilst we knew that this was coming about for the last 5 months, effectively, that's when we started really talking about it. So it's not that it's happened in the last 4 weeks.
No.
And the first paintings that are in this show came about almost as far back as, I think the first works that we've got on the wall now, we saw for the first time as far back as, say, September last year.
Yeah, September, October. Yeah, probably. Yeah, absolutely. Yep. Had a bit of free time towards the end of the year, so just started making works for the sake of it, which was really lovely as well. And it's tied into what other things I'm doing, so it's been really quite nice. And
so it was, these paintings have come about at the end of the work that you had made for a show that you did in Italy? Yeah.
So with Patricia Lowe in Venice, there was a big focus on water-based imagery, sirens, given the I guess the unique nature of the location of Venice, and I really enjoyed it. So there's been a nice evolution from there, considering with water themes, not everything, but yeah, trying to find new ways to make psychedelically kind of infused, kitschy, well, things we've done, that influenced my grandparents.
The influence of your grandparents?
Well, it comes from stuff that they owned. So the old concrete swans with the geraniums back in the day. I think that's that stuff. You look at, I guess what you think of childhood. As you get older, I feel like you think more about your childhood and how complication-free it was compared to adulting. And yeah, see, I tend to go back to those things because I think it's just a nice change.
And it's a complication of parenting, do you think, as well? Like seeing your own boys as they grow, you reflect on it more, or is just you think it's a wisdom thing?
I think it's wisdom. I think it's parenting. I think it's a global thing. With the emergence of social media and access to internet. Once upon a time, you'd get the news at 6 p.m. daily. Now you get it every 3 minutes, updates, or when you jump on any kind of social media. So I think it's infused complication that probably doesn't exist, but it's still something that adds up over time.
Yeah.
You know, various conflicts and governmental and regulation changes that makes life slightly more difficult. And yeah, I think there's lots of things. There's never one thing, it's just always compounding. And individually, I think if you look at some of them, they're probably you can deal and you can cope with it. But when you start adding the 1-2%ers on, it just keeps on building. And that makes adulting challenging from times. That's just how I feel anyway.
Totally.
Yeah.
Tell me about the motor spirit element
Yeah.
that's coming through into this show. Outside of like two styles of work that do and are symbiotic in that you can see reference points to both kind of ideas in single canvases, but then there's also that motor spirit as singular abstracted ideas.
Sure, yeah.
Where does that come about from?
I think as continued to explore the figurative side of painting, there's always that sort of yearning to be more expressive about instantaneous sort of gratification through art making, which is really challenging in my process. So I wanted to do something that was just reductive or reducing current themes into something more expressive, something that was more instantaneous. And Motor Spirit came across, I was reading a book, funnily enough, about Zodiac. You know, so it's got a fairly morose background, but they talk about in the book, Motor Spirit talks about the feeling of the time, the fever pitch of, so you had, the flower power, was it flower power? And you had, there's emergence of a new industry. It was bizarre looking back in that time though, because there's no real internet or communication between county. So Motor Spirit really talks about a particular time in place where there was an excitement. There was big change in the 60s. And
you often talk about rock and roll and the influence of music in your work and influences. Is that coming through in Motor Spirit, or is that all the work?
Absolutely. No, I think I think with a lot of things, you do something that you reflect on the process. It's not necessarily noticeable when you're doing it, but then you look back. So with the figurative works, I probably spend more time listening to audiobooks and podcasts because they require a lot of attention and focus and time. And with the Motor Spirit stuff, it's far more music-based. Loud, fast, emotive in that sense. So there's a feel to making one.
So you're diving into it a bit more?
I think so, yeah. Okay. Yeah, I think so. And it's less thinking, more doing, I think, which is nice. And also trying to achieve something whilst doing as little as you can, trying to get a feeling out of something without populating a whole canvas.
And jumping back to the water paintings that you mentioned and the influence of Venice, I know you talked about reading a lot of Thomas Mann when you went to Venice just to do some further research. Is that sort of something that is coming through in these works?
I think so. Also, we spend a lot of time in a local park called Parc de Foucault, which is about 5 minutes walk from our house. My youngest son is really getting to David Attenborough sort of themes and interested in nature. And they've got a really beautiful pond and water system there, which sort of runs down to the river. So through spending time at Parc de Foucault, I get ideas. I love the idea of making bronze and sculpture for water, placement in water. Ideally, I'd love to get things put in the middle of rivers. It would be fun. Don't think it's going to happen. But yeah, so it's just, you sort of grow the theme from one idea to the other. And for me, this work sort of surpassed Venice in some way. It's more of a focus on home and things that are really familiar and things that are really important and beautiful. The sound of water is just magnificent. So we've got an old fountain near our house, which is only turned on for summer. But when you turn it on, just the constant sound of water, it's very soothing, relaxing, very homely. So all your environments really influence things you do, not necessarily consciously either. They just sort of pop in, and before you know it, you're doing stuff.
And I know in terms of some of the imagery and iconography, you've spoken previously about the influence of being a father, having two young boys and their insight into play you thinking about your own childhood and some of the 80s cartoons? Is there any of that influence coming through?
Yeah, I think so. I think it'll always be. I think that influence now is sort of embedded. My wife was making us clean out our storage for the millionth time, and I found a good He-Man book. Yeah, phenomenal. And the palettes they use, it is as a reference material to see how colours work together.
There's a new He-Man movie coming out.
I'll be seeing it.
Oh, dude. I'm so ready.
I might even see twice.
Battle Cat, man.
My wife has taught me a lot through the journey. You know, when you really look at palette exploration, she was the first to tell me, start looking at dresses, start looking at female fashion, and male to a degree, but it's most, really beautiful option, things like that. And then I think as an extension of that, I started looking at cartoons, which have really beautiful palettes, and seeing how colours work together and against each other. So I think there will always be that influence, mate. I think that's sort of ingrained now. And the art of trying not to get older, even though I'm aging at a rate of knots. It's hopefully that it will keep me a little youthful for a little longer. Yeah.
The animation, that element,
Yep.
as a reference point in the work, like I see, particularly in some of the larger format works, there comes a real narrative in the paintings.
Mm-hmm.
That is obviously a feature that animators sort of talk about in terms of building the story through frames. Do you ever think that way about the paintings, or do they have a life force of their own? You're not necessarily thinking where the narrative goes in a painting or how it leads on to a next one. They're just sort of moments in time. How do you see that?
Yeah, I do think there are moments in time. I think that at the moment, my kids are at a really cool age where I think now at their age I can have more of an impact. Yeah, but now there are some discussions about career, and so there's this ongoing maybe a pressure now for me to really be very considered around the advice I give. These are questions that, as opposed to like how do I make a paper airplane versus what should I do for the rest of my life and career? What should I study and what do I need to? So they're just slightly different questions, I guess. And yeah, I have noticed that there are smaller dragons versus bigger, and they look like they're engaged in discussion. So yeah, it's funny though, because I do think a lot of it is subconscious. It just sort of leaks into what you're doing. Yeah, built into the paintings. And
you obviously now reside in the south of France. You've been there for a number of years. You talk openly about, obviously, your boys are little Frenchies. They go to school, they speak amazing French. Yeah. But you've also talked in the past about your influence in delving into the history of French painters. And we see some of those influences in, there's a bit of Toulouse-Lautrec in a couple of the works, and there's obviously some Matisse. Is there anyone recently that you are becoming more influenced by or exploring their work in terms of those French masters? Yeah, sure. I think as an extension from Toulouse-Lautrec and Matisse, Les Nabis are a group from Brittany. Bonnard was featured heavily. Bonnard is someone I've become to love more and more. And a lesser known name in Paul Serussier, who, similar to Bonnard, really focused on the cultural aspects of life in Brittany, but then started incorporating some occultish elements. Not, a lot of people giving praise to occult elements, and I really love that idea. I love the paganistic elements of the south of France. The different, and same in the UK, I should say, and throughout Europe. There are paganistic celebrations, pre-religious tradition that has remained or has been revived. And I think you even mentioned in some winemaking processes in terms of harvest and things. Yeah, the region, or the bio, harvesting based on full moon, and I think that's all really lovely, really earthy elements that in today's society it's more about efficiency, effectiveness, low cost. Profitability, but I feel like where we are, the guys are just like, guys and women, we have a system that's hundreds and hundreds of years old, and it works because the wine is magnificent, and a lot of them aren't exactly business savvy because they don't have cellar doors even though they should, or don't sell locally. And I think it's just a really lovely place where thriving business is not the focus.
It's like the product is the focus. And yes, they'll make money, but they're not trying to make $1 zillion. They're trying to make a beautiful product. And off the back of that beautiful product, they'll live a really lovely life. And I think it's quite foreign to the, I guess, the nature of economics in places I've lived in previously. Yeah.
And obviously, your home is currently France, but growing up in Melbourne, you've still got that deep connection to Australia and Australian culture.
Yep.
What do you see in terms of the Australian art market that excites you, interests you, or what are you trying to achieve by exhibiting consistently in Australia?
I still think Australia has some of the best artists in the world. I just don't think there's... I don't know if there's not a pathway or a desire, but I think I'd love to get more Australians overseas and exposure, because I think they're brilliant. There's a really interesting and dynamic approach to art here. But also, I mean, a lot of people don't aspire. I'm really happy doing stuff here. I'm not the arbiter of what they should or shouldn't do, but. Yeah, and I think when you move overseas, you do appreciate your roots more and where you come from more. And it's important to remember where you came from. And we listen to a lot of Australian music, and we still keep up to date with Australian politics and what's happening over here, and all our families here. So it's still very key to and central to who we are, very much so. Just because you moved, I think I've realised. You can take the boy out of Australia, but you definitely can't take Australia out of the boy. So I'm really pleased to be working here and showing here, and it feels good, and it's lovely. I think it's easy. When things are easy, you know it's right. So it's always been easy.
We've got obviously the great show that you've got on the walls here, opening in the next week. What have you got planned for the future? What's after this?
Well, after this, I've got a show with Koenig in a gallery in Berlin, in a beautiful old brutalist cathedral, really, which is magnificent. So I'm looking forward to that. Doing some work in Santa Fe, which will be lovely. And after that, I'm just going to spend some time with a bit of research and development into some mosaic and some more sculptural elements and things I'm interested in.
Sculpture has always been something that you've aspired to. I mean, the icons in this work is very sculptural. We've seen large-scale bronze work that you've done before. It's obviously something that you've either come to or it's always been there, but it's now you've got a vehicle and an outlet to expand on it more.
Sure.
Is it the two are obviously interrelated in your practice? They're very different from a hands-on perspective, I suppose.
Yeah, very different.
You've obviously just had a show actually at Yorkshire Sculpture Park in the UK. It was obviously an internal gallery as well with paintings, but there were also some new, there's stone relief works.
Yeah, the stone relief, yeah.
Can you tell me about that process and how those works came to be?
I guess it's just an extension of painting to a degree, because you're still using the visual elements of your painting, and sort of, in some ways, it almost feels like it's just stone and pasto, because you're using similar aspects. I have made sculpture physically myself. Some of the things, it's out of my skill set. I definitely do not call myself a sculptor. I think that comes with years of practice and grit and hard work. So I'd never dare say I'm a sculptor, because I'm not, but I do make sculpture. I think there's a big difference between the two. I'm really interested in making stuff for the outdoors next. These sort of swan dragons, sandstone or marble, and making outdoor pictures, outdoor paintings, utilising mosaic, and I don't know. We've got some really beautiful outdoor places in France, and I always thought it'd be really lovely how cool to have to be an outdoor painting via mosaic, and having some swan dragons with big plants in the middle, and so I'm interested in exploring that element next, which is slightly more. Well, it's still art. It's just slightly more functional. You're able to use them for specific things as opposed to a painting, which serves a purpose on the wall, So, yeah.
And you're in front of a canvas now.
I am.
How did this work come about?
This work came about because I'd finished stuff for the show, and then one of your kind collectors decided that they would like a work. But yeah, no, I've actually hadn't painted one of these for a while. So I'm very much inspired by the patterning from Matisse and Bonnard, and I hadn't actually done a dueling figurative work, and it feels more and more relevant to me at the moment because my sons are now the age of every couple of days they're really getting stuck into each other, and they're both bigger and stronger. And so, you know, it's just it's not particularly romantic. It's just a real thing. So we're separating them. I didn't grow up with brothers, so I'm lucky I've got advice from mates who do have brothers. And yeah, they love each other dearly and they're best mates, but geez, they can really wail into each other. So I don't know. I think it's just funny now that there's still the warmth in the works. There's love. But I think it's just two young men who are, you know, one gives the other a little shove, and then the return shove is threefold, and then, yeah. So it's a very domesticated kind of real normal thing. It's not political. It's not, you know. It's just like this is a part of our family life, having two young fellas getting stuck at each other.
Well, it's relevant when you put it that way to the title of the show being Family Portraits. Well, mate, it's great to have you here.
Thank you for having me.
No, we're thrilled to see you again. I mean, yes. It's been how many years since you've been back out here to Sydney?
Well,
it's been a couple.
We've been together for 10 years.
Yeah, and we've been working together for 10 years.
10 years. It's been a lovely 10 years. Really interesting. Ups and downs and everything else in between. And
well, I think
which is life, I guess, isn't it? Yeah.
It's also growing together, you know?
Yeah.
Like certainly I know that we wouldn't be the gallery that we are if it hadn't been for you. And I mean that genuinely. Like the perspective that we've gained of your moving to Europe and seeing yourself as part of a global art world rather than a local art world has been huge.
Yeah.
So it's really upped our game in terms of how we have seen the world and how we participate in it as an extension of your practice and the artists that we now have represented. I mean, a lot of them that came to meet us, almost that they knew you as well, or were directed to us directly by you, or somehow you're involved in a lot of decisions, less so actively in some circumstances, actively more so in others, but you know, we couldn't have done it without you as well. So mate,
no, it's feelings mutual, mate. It takes two to tango. I need you guys as well. So
yeah.
Yeah, I think it's been good. A really lovely collaborative approach, and easy, which is the best kind. I think if anyone said to me, "What's it like working the artists?" I think it's easy. You know, it's not complicated because so many elements of life are, and that's what you want. I think a non-complicated, easy, lovely.
With a lot of memes.
Lots of memes. Yeah, a lot of memes. A lot of wasted time. Absolutely. Yeah, I apologise for that.
No, don't apologise at all. Anyway, well, thanks, mate.
Thanks, mate. Thanks for having me.
Cheers, pal.
Cheers.